Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Aliens Fireteam Elite video. Now this video is going to be a little bit different, and I don't know how long it's going to be as I'm showcasing these things and talking about it, but I saw a comment on the AFE Reddit page, and what the comment read was that it is hard to ascertain and learn what could be good, not good, what's bad, what isn't bad, and what's usable, not usable on Aliens Fireteam Elite. Now, the game is very old at this point, obviously granted, but we can use this as just a reference point for future, in case anyone's curious and anyone is interested in looking at quote-unquote what's meta, not meta, what's good, not good. Needless to say, I'll just say it right now first in the beginning of this, I don't think there is any actual meta. Every weapon is usable on Insane. That is the hardest difficulty here. I will show you. We'll just pick one here. Difficulty being, there you go, you can see, casual, standard, intense, extreme, insane. I have used almost every weapon on Insane and have a build with almost every weapon on Insane. The only weapons I personally don't have a build for or use is the EVA laser and the 12A rocket launcher, specifically. Every other weapon here, I have a build that uses it in some way or capacity, and I accommodate for that. Now, what we're going to go into with this video is specifically how to build around a kit, or how to build around a weapon, and or what does your kit want versus what weapons would then make sense. So we'll do a few of them here, as that'll make the most sense to kind of break it down. Tech, I think, is one of the easiest, so we'll stick with that one here. So we'll move everything off the tech grid itself, right? So we'll look at a completely blank tech grid space. And looking at this now, our tech has no perks. And we could even get rid of the guns here if we really wanted to. That way we could do that, yeah, like this. And then do that, load that, and do that. Okay, so our weapons are blank. Let's just say we want to use these guns. Let's say that we're using these guns because we think they're good, or if we know how tech works, we think we want to use them. So first, it really comes down to your build and if the weapon is feasible or usable. Now I have a whole tier list that I actually have, and I'll link it in this video's description, that goes over every weapon, and it does an in-depth analysis. Now, I'm playing AFE Enhanced, so there has been rebalances and changes to perks and etc., and it does buff other abilities. There are tweaks to weapon, tweaks to attachments, but I will show the quote-unquote attachments that I would go for or how to build around as well, just to give an example. Even as if this was base game, as the attachments that were really good in base game were not actually touched. So you'll still get good information from that. So we start with our tech. For our tech here, we want to run a particle turret build. So right off the bat, we need to grab particle turret. Then, with our particle turret build here, a amazing thing. Now this goes from knowing how the builds work and stuff. So your particle turret itself fires a beam that goes straight through and can hit multiple enemies. Knowing that, parasocial relationship is a good add-on to this. And you may be asking why. And right here, you deal 20% more damage to targets that your turret has recently damaged. If your particle turret shoots and hits through like 5 or 6 enemies, that means you are getting 5 or 6 enemies that are going to be taking 20% more damage. And if a captain or elite enemy comes up to attack and fight, then you will have access to fighting them and dealing 20% more damage then in that case. So we have parasocial and we have particle turret. Now you might be looking and going, oh well, I want force multiplier, or I want compatibility matrix, or I want dynamic delivery systems, or I want real-time resource reclamation for this tech build. These aren't good on particle turret. You don't want these on particle turret at all. The turret fires 15% faster and deals 25% more damage to armor. The particle turret isn't meant to deal damage, especially on Insane. Right, this is a debuff tool that is going to help you get more damage and slow the enemies so that you can kill them more efficiently and quickly. And real-time resource reclamation. Again, this matters about like how your kit works. You don't put the particle turret near you. If we were fighting, let's say, over there where I just shot, and there's enemies coming from there, and we're fighting here actually, I'd want my turret behind me. So I would put my turret behind me and then sit in front of it and like coil and shoot. The turret exploding and having a shorter cooldown time doesn't matter because it shouldn't be getting attacked as often anyways. So that wouldn't be a good perk to have on this, which is why build knowledge is so important for this. So realistically, we're done with our turret. We don't need anything else. So next we'll look at charged coils. Probably one of the best things we can have. Compatibility matrix is better on charged coils. You use them more often, and you are going to throw them a lot, meaning that you're going to have constant uptime for your damage. The same thing can apply to your turret, but only when your turret's alive. If your turret gets destroyed, you lose the minimum 10% damage boost, meaning that you could always have coils up, especially if you build it correctly. So that is a must. So we're going to put compatibility matrix on. Now we'll look at more of our stuff. Agile practices. We get move speed and reload speed. Okay. That could be good. Again, stacks 3 times. It's not bad. But it's just movement speed and reload speed. So we'll hold off and see what else we can get. See if we can debuff enemies or make them take more damage. Again, disruptive technology is also not bad. Here, though, we have a really good one. Maximize retention. When a foe enters the field of your charge coils, they have a 33% chance to be stunned for 2 seconds. This applies for every dot that the coils do, meaning that you're almost always guaranteed to stun them on entry. A very strong perk, I would say a must-have on tech. Boom, so we know we have that. Now this next part here is based on how you want your coils. I personally like my coils to have a 100% uptime to recharge ratio, meaning what you do is you're going to take batteries, not batteries included, or rapid deployment, which gives you both 20% recharge. Then you're taking another 20%, or not another 20%, sorry, but you'll take the quick charge 2, which is another 13%, and that'll give you a 33% ability recharge. Then you can take a single, so the level 1 extended duration. So extended duration level 1 here, giving you a recharge speed of 33% and a duration of 7%. This means your coils have about a 15-second roughly recharge time, and they will last for that long, meaning that you can 1-for-1 your coils if you need to, and if you spam them though, they'll be fast enough on recharge that you'll get them pretty quickly, and you can cover the area pretty efficiently. Next we'll look at cross-platform synergy. Again, our turret's meant for debuffing. You're not going to be sitting next to it, so the boost that analytics would give or the hyper-local logistics aren't really necessary. So we're not going to really take that. So now we're going to look at the base kit itself then and see if we can touch anything up on it. Right off the bat, creative pain point solution. You and your turret do 15% more damage to slowed enemies. Our coils slow and particle turret slows, meaning our particle turret debuffs them, making them take 20% more damage innately just from it. Then creative pain point solutions activates, meaning that we also deal more damage to them based on us hitting them with a coil or the turret. So again, this is a free must-have. Next, we'll scroll down to another tech specific if it's here. There it is. You gotta scroll up. Resonating impact. Again, another ultimate super good ability on tech. Not for every build, but it is extremely good on most builds if you can slot it in. If your turret stumbles an enemy, they take 10% more damage, and your turret gains an extra 10% stumble chance. Now with this, we're going to want to take deep leverage. And we're actually going to rotate this way, I think. So deep leverage is now that if we stumble an enemy, we have a 15% chance to knock them down. So now we have a free stun from our coils, and we have a knockdown if we stumble an enemy hard enough and then keep shooting into them within the resonating impact window. Again, very good, very effective. So we're going to take that, and we're actually going to rotate here. Nope, we're gonna have to do some accommodating here real quick. Sorry. All right, we gotta beautify this. There we go. Okay. Next, something you may be thinking of now, how can we get more damage out of this build since we already have really good CC from our turret and our coils? Down and out. You deal 20% more damage to enemies that are stunned or knocked. Now, the reason why this is super good is that you are constantly stunning or knocking down. Knocking down here with resonating impact and deep leverage, and stunning with maximized retention and charged coils. Finally, we have 6 slots left. Now, you already saw before, but what can you do now? Well, ultimately now, we can take it and we can boost our damage. Enemies are already going to be CC'd very, very powerfully and very hard. We could put this on, but that's only 30% move speed and 30% reload speed if we have all 3 coils out at once. And just to get that, you're burning a lot of your abilities in case you need them for later. You could take Disruptive Technology. That isn't terrible, as enemies will do less. So if you do stick an enemy and they hit you, they will do less. But what else we can do here is we can bring weapon perks. So we can bring Tech CQW Training and Gunner CQW Mastery. Now this does matter based on the weapon you have, which is important, as I'm going to get into now. So now we know that our turret is going to debuff enemies. We want to stumble them a lot, and then we're trying to boost our damage. So when we look at our weapons here, we look at the grenade launcher. Immediately, what can we do to increase it? Now we can put some other magazines on it. However, with the reverberator here, we get the ability to make enemies take 10% more AoE damage on hit for 5 seconds. This stacks 3 times, meaning that when we fire 3 grenades at them, they're going to be taking 30% more AoE damage, which again, since we've boosted our DPS so much, that is just free damage. The other one we can think of taking is more fire rate, so we can fire faster, and then we can put polygonal rifling on, so if they get hit, they take 10% bonus damage, the enemy themselves, meaning we are supercharging our weapon's damage if we have coils, the turret hitting them, and then we're shooting grenades into them. Then onto the breaching scattergun. Now for this, you'd probably run either compensator or recoil booster. For me, I'm running compact flash hider because it is changed in this in the AFE enhanced. Now this does depend if there's no weaken or not. I like the casket mag because of the ammo and fire rate. And then small optics, I would usually say bring the hybrid sight, but because of this weapon, you can push in the holo tab here because of AFE, and you're going to get better damage out of that then, as long as you're shooting and reloading. So we've now turned our build that was primarily focused on CC debuffing and then invested into 2 weapons. And the scattergun has high stumble chance. The grenade launcher has somewhat decent stumble chance, but the grenade launcher boosts its own damage by hitting enemies and debuffs them to take more while we boost our own damage. Another build to take a look at and to like think of an idea for building is like heavy CC Lancer build. Both of your weapons are going to want to be CC focused, however you build that. For example, it's probably best that your gun that's meant for bosses knocks them down instead of stuns them, and then anything else would get stunned, depending on how you build that. And that'll dictate what you bring as a weapon for specifically that class and how you want to build around it. So, if we're building into a hard CC focused Lancer, down and out is a good choice. And then just, again, you can bring like generic Lancer perks. But then again, what your weapon is that's focused on for dealing damage, you want to invest those weapon perks to help boost it up to make it do even more. And then if the weapon doesn't have a lot of access to weapon perks, pick the best ones that you can to boost it as much as possible. And this really shines in like another build here, which we will say is like the Recon. So the Recon itself, the Type 21 cannot kill a runner in one shot. No matter with what setup you use, it's not going to kill a runner in one shot. You just won't hit the damage for it. However, if a recon has chain reaction, you do have the capability to one-shot a runner then. The next question becomes, though, can you make it consistent? This is where your attachments can help. So we're going to boost the accuracy so we have a tighter spread, so when we aim for the head, we don't miss it as much. The hybrid optics here helps, though, because it also gives us bonus damage, which means that we are going to have an extra overcap, so if we miss some pellets to the head, we aren't screwed out of one-shotting. Then, here, how your weapon perks get used also dictates what you're building into. The Type 21 doesn't build the same way as other guns. It has a fast fire rate already. You want it to be more lethal and more consistent with one-shotting runners. Thus, you take like Recon Mastery, Phalanx Expertise, and then you can take CQW Mastery and Gunner CQW Mastery, which I would say are usually generic good ones, but those can change depending on what attachments you have for your build. A good example here is the Heirloom. So the Heirloom here we have based into accuracy and fire rate. Now its base fire rate is already faster than the pump shotgun. If I show you here, the pump shotgun is at 2.1 and it has the field reserves into it. So its fire rate is 2.1, but it has assault brake in it as well. Versus if you go to like the Heirloom, which just has the fire rate of polygonal. However, it's the weapon perks themselves where you see Gunner Mastery, Tech Mastery, because you want the pump to fire as fast as possible. Versus if I have the Heirloom is a faster base fire rate. It's just not as lethal at farther away. It has a steeper decline on damage fall off. This means that when we look at boosting its damage, we don't want to boost its fire rate. We want to boost its effective range and weak point damage, meaning that we get more bang for our buck. That way it becomes consistent, and consistency is king here, where you can consistently keep doing something. For instance, like the M37A3 pump shotgun here. If you stun, let's say, a spitter with it, you can burst kill it with this weapon, which isn't possible unless you run focus fire and overwhelming fire. And then you also get down and out, which gives you the damage boost that you need, as well as getting the fire rate boosts. So it's not always about weak point damage. You'll see a lot of people will build in just the pure weak point damage. That doesn't necessarily mean that your weapon is going to be efficient because it has the most weak point damage. You also have to look at fire rate. If it takes you 5 seconds to kill something with 10 bullets, but it takes you 4 seconds to kill something with like 14 bullets, your DPS is higher because you are killing the enemy and doing more damage faster. Even though technically the other bullets are hitting harder, it takes them longer because you lost fire rate. This is where you have to do a balancing act, where it's, do you want to run assault brake from a fire rate, or would you run vent brake, for instance, which gives you stability and weak point on hit? A good weapon to show this off as is the like right here, the halberd, which is more of a weak point focused weapon. It already has a very high fire rate. So instead of investing in more fire rate, we can invest in more weak point damage, for instance, and hybrid optics here, which gives it even more damage minus some fire rate. And then if you want to math out, you can math out the xenomorph's health for runners, for like rifles, or you can math out like the spitters and stuff. I can put a link in for a picture maybe in the description. But in terms of building, this is how building is very important. Another good example here is the last one I'll use here. Is, for instance, this build here. You can either run extended flash hider on the scout rifle with hybrid optics, or you could run tanker muzzle with hybrid optics, or even the different one, which is green dot sight or red dot sight. Now, the reason why I say this is that this build specifically with Doc, if you have support system, not support system, sorry, if you have strength in numbers and Doc's orders, you get a 25% DPS boost. And then what I took is recon rifle training and gunner rifle mastery, which also increased weak point damage by another 30%. It lets your scout rifle one-shot runners on headshot, but you wouldn't know that unless you build into it and test it out to see if it's possible. So, for reference here, I'll do a quick show. If we go to 4.2, for instance, and load up, you will need damage number testers as well for this. as it does give you the best way to see what you're actually hitting. You can look at health bars themselves, but if you want to look at the actual values that you're hitting so you can calculate better, that is a good thing to do. However, this build is based around doing runner breakpoints. So you obviously want your damage to be based around 2709 on runners. So we have the build here. And you can see that 2763 is what we hit. So that is more than enough for breakpoint. Well, if the bots weren't killing everything and I wasn't missing. But this is important when you're hitting, when you're building.
So, be paranoid. If you see something, shoot something.
Because if you're not building for breakpoints like this, and you're just building for specifically, I want the weapon to do more damage, but you don't know what you're building for that weapon to do, it can get muddied. Or if you see this, oh, this weapon's the best, but why? And then you're just told it's the best, but you don't know why. You don't know what value it's having or why it's the best. And then you're led to your own devices of, oh, it's the best because of this. Well, you can see here, I'm hitting breakpoint with this, which means that this weapon is really good for runner killing. And you wouldn't know that unless you tested it and looked at it. There isn't a one-all be-all. Every weapon has its strengths and weaknesses. Some weapons are better for fodder. Some weapons are better for boss killing or like special killing. It's just dependent on the weapon itself. So I hope that answers some questions. I hope it makes it simple enough. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you next time. Bye.